I'm going to do a video on a lawnmower blade sharpening device. I came up with it because I guess you might say, a little frustrated sometimes. Most of the time I sharpen my blades on a bench grinder and used to always just freehand them. The only problem was that I'd have a good angle going, and then I would stop to look at the angle and say, well, I got to take a little more off. And then once I go back in, I find out I'm grinding on a little bit of a different angle. And what I had going really nice all of a sudden turns out to not be so nice as far as a uniform and a nice consistent angle. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this one here I already sharpened. It's got the mulching portion of it. These are two different angles. Well, let's put it this way. They might be the same angle on the blade, but because of the difference in height, I'll have to set it up for each angle. This apparatus that I came up with, basically it's a sliding wooden device, and the blade is locked down on this here hinge. It's a T-hinge, along with I've got threaded rod bent at a 90-degree, threaded rod coupler to give it a pivot point, two threaded rod couplers here to lock in my angle. And if you notice, if I get this one out of the way, I can go up and down that way, or if I want to lower it. So I got all this movement, and I got quite a bit of adjustability here. So what you really are up against is, first of all, locking the blade down. I use a pair of, I guess you could call them C vice grip clamps. And what I did was I welded two fender washers on these pivot points. Reason for that is that with the small little pivot points on a regular pair, give you an example, they come like this. A lot of times, this one not so much. Sometimes this will flip clear down here. And when you have it set up, and all of a sudden that flips down, and you go back to put these back on, when you flip the blade around, it's like all of a sudden you wonder, why is it not adjusted correctly? These, even though they pivot around, when you go in here, they self-align themselves. They're a bigger, flatter surface, so they just follow the shape of the blade and they self-align. And that's all I use to lock that down onto that T-hinge. I welded this little square tubing on here. Reason for that is the rounded portion of the T-hinge on some blades, when you go to put them here, they kind of slip off over. And this, I don't know if you see this curvature here. This one's fine, it wouldn't do that. There are some blades this curvature goes this way, and when you put up here, put this on a T-hinge, it'll, slide right off. And I just did that so that when you put the blade on, it just adjusts itself to a, perpendicular position there. Clamp it down, and you're ready to go. Now what this does is, with this sliding platform on nothing more than a plywood built base, plywood built sliding table, believe it or not, it just works perfectly. You come in and the best way to adjust this is, instead of trying to adjust this at a particular angle, I usually just come in and touch off the grinding wheel, flip it on. I'll set this, I'll eyeball it and get it to where I think it's fairly close, and then I'll get my adjustment made with the two threaded rod couplers so that I'm close, at least as far as I know. Don't matter, when you touch off on this grinding wheel, it doesn't take very much of the material off. And this blade I sharpened already. I've got 4 or 5 blades over there. They're all sharpened, so I couldn't find a dull one. So what I did was, just for demonstration purposes, this one here I blackened out with a magic marker. And I'll give you sort of a demonstration here on how I adjust this angle. Like I said, I don't really care too much whether I'm really accurate on the angle in the beginning, because I'm going to let this tell me what I need to do. So I came in, and you probably can't see it, but I'm grinding way up here hard on the angle. That tells me this blade is going to come up this way quite a bit, actually. So what I need to do is lower this to bring this edge up. So I'll drop down this here threaded rod, and I'm not going to lock it in place as long as I'm down on that, resting on it. Wow, I'm already almost there. The blackened off portion of this is the wheel is all the way down almost to the cutting edge. Be perfect. Come down just a hair more and I'll be good to go. And it's just as simple as that. Then the best thing to do is lock it down so that you keep that angle. After that, it's basically just straightforward. You don't have to think, you don't have to be too careful. It keeps the angle, even though you may go a little this way, a little that way, it doesn't seem to change the angle much. If you weren't resting on this flat surface and you went down like this or up like that, that would change the angle. This, not so much. It's just a piece of cake, to be honest with you. I like it. It takes the frustration out of sharpening a blade. It makes it almost pleasant. Whenever I have a lawnmower blade to sharpen, I don't have that dreadful feeling like, oh boy, here I go again, to see what kind of a technique I can come up with this time to keep the angle nice and consistent. Now, I had that all blackened off. You can see how shiny and uniform. It's just a perfect angle. Really takes a lot of the hassle, I would say the hassle out of sharpening a blade. Now, being that this has got the mulching portion up here, what I would do is flip the blade around. So easy. I found these little C-clamp locking pliers to be about the best way to lock it down. You got to adjust it, it self-aligns, and it's quick. Now you're ready to do the side here. After I get that to where I'm happy with these two angles here, then I'll come over and do the same thing here. Because the reason it changes the angle is because it's coming up higher due to this raised portion. It's coming up higher on the grinding wheel. So you'll find that, okay, you got to make a slight adjustment for that, and then do that, this one, and really pretty much the done deal. This is just as simple as that can be. A T-hinge, I think this is a 5-inch T-hinge. You wouldn't have to have this square tubing welded on there, but I did and I like it. If you don't, there's some blades that'll kind of flip over and you just have to take a little more time to get that set in there straight and lock it. This is nothing more than quarter-inch threaded rod, quarter-inch threaded rod couplers. Same thing down here. I welded to a little piece of flat stock, drilled 2 holes, put 2 screws in there. And then I built this little box, and the reason for that is it brings it up to give me the height I need so that when this blade is on here, it's just so easy to, it puts it in. You don't have to be in the center of this grinding wheel for this to work. You could be here, 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 here. It's just that it's kind of a happy medium area so that, to give you an example, if this box was higher and you're up here, that blade would have to be really tilted and you may run out of some adjustment. If it's too low, of course you'll be down into this area. I took the guard off, I should say the tool rest. Got that right out of the way. I kind of made this a dedicated grinder for my lawnmower blades. And although this wheel here, I can use it as a regular grinder, I've got another one on the bench This doesn't have to be, this is like self-contained, so I can move it around. I like to put it on this roll around table I have, and kind of gets it out here in the open. A lot of the filings will go onto the floor, and I can vacuum them up later. So if you notice, I got this kind of offset on this, and the reason for that is if you put this over here, you're going to come up and hit this before this blade gets over far enough. So just offset it here if you're going to make one of these. This is roughly, I forget, but I think it's roughly 3 inches, but that's not critical. Doesn't have to be hollow. It could be a solid block. You just kind of want something that's uniform and has a nice flat plane to it. The fact that you're going plywood against plywood, you don't find it to be any effort really. It's not like it's got to be that smooth of an operation. That is pretty much, I've got this, like I said, bolted down to this only for the reason I like being able to put it on the rolling table. You could put one over onto your bench, and if you do, the thing you might want to do is, as you can see, this kind of comes out from this. And what's going to happen if this is mounted real close to your bench, this is going to be out into the open. There's ways around it. Either move this back, or you can build a box like this with a little partition on it, just screw it down to your bench, and just move it when you really don't need it for a period of time. Now, I do some lawnmower work, but not tons of it, and I got to where I'm really happy with this. I'm really happy. So happy and pleased that I'm not even going to try to figure out a better way to do it. Now, another thing I was going to tell you. See how this, you got that little weird star-shaped center hole? I don't know about you, but if you balance blades and you got one of those little pedestal balancers and you put it on there, you get this kind of blade that's really hard. You got to almost guess where the center is and then hope for the best. And sometimes you get weird readings, conflicting readings. If you're to flip it end to end, you think one end's heavier and then you find out it's really not. I went out and bought a blade sharpener over here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's one of these more precision not sharpeners. It's one of these here magnetic balancers. You put that on there, and right away you see the heavy ends right here. This cone-shaped portion of the balancer will self-align the blade so that when you bring the magnets forward, it just puts that blade. Every time you put it on, you're going to see that that's the heavy side. And then basically, all you got to do is grind off some more on that heavy side. That was about $80, shipping and all, maybe a little over. And I got to where now, when I balance a blade, it's like, I just feel like, oh, beautiful. Don't mind doing it at all. It's almost fun. Now, the last video I did one on, I did this Harbor Freight circular saw sharpener. I have a video on that. If you go to my channel, you'll find out how I build it and how you can go about it. And I'll tell you, I really like it. I'm thinking about maybe coming up with a video on how to build this little shed. This shed is really tiny. It's 4x4, 7.5 feet tall. And it's about, I would say, total materials, I figured out about $280. You would think you could build it cheaper than that, but if you figure every little thing, including paint, screws, hardware, you know, it all adds up. The interesting thing about it is I built this without any shingles on the roof. And I'm not getting a very good picture because I didn't plan on necessarily putting this on this video. But It's smart siding from Home Depot with a smart siding roof and with a cap and these little pieces to finish it off to give it some overhang and make it watertight. So hopefully I gotta build a 4x8, yeah, a 4x6 I should say. I used to build all different size sheds. I gave it up pretty much. I shouldn't say pretty much. All the bigger ones I quit building. Too much now, too much for me to do. And this one here I can build in the shop. I got that one sold. I got a 4x6 sold. And I got a little flatbed, and those two will go right on easily. Maybe in the future I'll do a video on how I load that onto my little flatbed trailer. Thank you for watching, and I'm slow about getting videos out, but I do have some other ideas I'd like to put on eventually that I find helpful, and maybe you will too. Thank you.